Welcome everybody to Student Social Work Hub Chat with me, Duane Phillips. Today I've got one of my most anticipated guests, somebody that I've known for many years in many different roles, and just like to thank you for joining us, Mike. So Mike, thanks for joining the Hub Chat.
Thank you. Good to be here. Good to be talking.
So Hub Chat runs with 3 questions. It's first question's about the person I'm interviewing. Second question is about social work theories and approaches and research. And the third question is usually just bringing it back to the interviewee and about a story. So Mike, as you know, I've known you for many years. I know you've worked in many different areas of social care and social work. So would you be happy to just tell us a bit about what areas of social work you've worked in, and also what's been your favourite area?
Yeah, okay. So I started doing voluntary work when I was 15 years old. I started working with people with disabilities and also in residential for older people. So it's something I've always done, and I've practiced as a social worker in adult services, which I really enjoyed. Met some really interesting people with some fascinating life stories. But then I moved from that into children's, into safeguarding, and I spent a number of years in children's safeguarding as a social worker, but also as an independent reviewing officer, child protection conference chair, team manager, and now a service manager. And I think probably it's been during that time in safeguarding that I've really enjoyed probably the most. It's difficult to say which of the roles I've done I enjoyed the most. Really enjoyed being a social worker, getting to know kids I was working with, getting to know the families, seeing the progress that people made, and enjoyed having difficult conversations at times and helping, thinking about how people move forward and all that. The time spent as an IRO and a child protection conference chair for me was a really significant period of time, because there's a different kind of view that you take in those roles, and some really interesting people I met, both professionals and the families that I was working with. And certainly as an independent reviewing officer for children who are in our care, established some really strong relationships with young people and children, really got to know them, really got to understand their perspectives and their experiences, which, to be honest, was absolutely fantastic. And there's some of those kids, well, they're adults now, who are still in contact. They not contact like weekly, but every now and again I get a text message just to let me know how they're getting on. These people. Just thinking about one person in particular, he's 25, he's just come out of the army, but he will text me to let me know how he's getting on and check in with me. But being a team manager of a safeguarding team was a really fantastic experience, and certainly the last team I managed, we had a real focus on restorative practice. The team adopted it, and really it was a really fantastic period of time to be a team manager, taking people on that journey, and more recently moving into a service manager. That's quite exciting, really. I'm only very recently into the job, but actually starting to look at whole system approaches to practice. So it's difficult to say which was the best, because I've just enjoyed it all, and I think I've been qualified social worker now for I think about 19 years. So there's a real span, but it's just been fantastic, and I'm just looking forward to the next 19 years.
So as students, a lot of our learning is so heavily embedded with kind of different theories and approaches and looking at research, which is something I find particularly interesting. So the one thing I always like to know about our guests is there a kind of a theory or an approach or some research that stands out to you personally that you think other students and viewers should be looking into?
Okay. I think people that know me will know that I'm going to talk about restorative practice. I do independent training nationally for restorative practice as well. So, and it's something about, it must have been about 7-8 years ago now. I attended a training course, a 3-day training course, and really it just changed my perspective. It affirmed some of the things that I was doing already, but kind of gave me some real different perspectives and thoughts about not just what we do, but why we do what we do as social workers, and actually how we do it. So, it was something that really, I would say, revolutionised my understanding of practice, and really defined my approaches to working, not just with the families and the children that I've worked with, but also professionals, kind of people within organisations. I suppose really what it did was it just really focused me on the benefit of working in a relational way with anybody.
So one thing that I really liked about the restorative journey was when you used to have a doorbell in your office. Now that sounds completely random to people that don't know about restorative practice, but would you be happy just to even explain what that is? Because I'm shrouding it in mystery.
Yeah, the doorbell. As a team manager, the team that I was managing, we adopted solution circles as a way of coming together as a team to look at issues and difficulties that maybe people were having. So if a worker came back to the office and they got a particular issue that they wanted to talk about or think through with the team, we used a solution circle formatted restorative process. But to save disturbing people, because people are really busy typing on the computer, on the phone, doing whatever they're doing in the office and stuff, we actually removed that element. We put a doorbell up, so the person coming in who wanted to talk with the team and have that consultation with the team didn't have to go around the office trying to disturb people. What they did was ring the doorbell. And everybody heard that and thought, well, actually, yeah, somebody needs a solution circle. So people would save their work. When the phone calls that they were on finished, naturally, they wouldn't make another call. Somebody go and set up a room in a circle. Somebody get the things that you need, set up the chairs, pens, paper, stuff. But yeah, it worked really, really well. And actually what we found was that the team started to do them all the time, and it actually spread. So other people from other teams, after they got over the initial fun of coming in and pressing our doorbell just because they wanted to press the doorbell, but people from other teams actually started to come and press the doorbell to seek that support. But it was just a way of kind of a call to action, bringing people together in just kind of a different way, rather than going around an office just trying to feeling awful because you're disturbing people that are busy. So yeah, it worked really well, and the solution circle format, really powerful exercise, takes 12 minutes. And one of the last ones that I did with the team that I was managing, within 12 minutes we found 48 solutions to the particular issue that this person had, that they were faced with. And really what it was about engaging that collective mind. You weren't just going off the manager's perspective or the senior practitioner's perspective or one perspective. Actually, I think for that circle there was about 10 people involved, so you're drawing on that collective mind, and in 12 minutes to get 48 solutions is nothing short of astounding. Obviously that person didn't go away and do 48 things. What they chose was the top 3 things, looked at those, but considered the other things kind of for future planning. So yeah, that was the doorbell. Really effective way of bringing people together.
Definitely. And I remember one occasion where I think I'd just come to squat in your office to get a desk, and I remember the doorbell going, and you go, this isn't just for this team, anybody in the room that wants to, chip in and listen and offer solutions, can. And I think that's how I became involved. And it was, I really liked then having the opportunity to put my own spin from my services perspective. And I just thought it was such a simple yet ingenious way of working. So, restorative practice is brilliant, and I'm really glad to have you on talking about it. So where would be the best place for students to look out for or look into restorative approaches and restorative theories?
There's a lot out there. There's various websites that you can look at. There's a lot that happens on Twitter. I'm on Twitter, and a lot of people tweet about restorative practice on Twitter. A go-to website that I would suggest is look at L30 Relational Systems, Mark Finnis's website. Obviously, I know Mark really well, but there's some really good resources that are on that website, some videos that Mark's done that explain it, and also some links to other information to stuff in education as well. Car manner in Leeds is a particular thing that I'd say to people, go and have a look if you want to see how you've been used in education as a whole system approach. There's various books out there. Mark will be pleased that I'm going to mention his book, which is a really, really good book. Mark finished Restorative Practice, but there's other books as well. But there's a vast amount of stuff out there, and if you just go onto Google or whatever search engine you use and type restorative practice in, you will find stuff. I suppose what I'd say to people is be clear about the difference between restorative justice and restorative practice. Restorative justice being something that responds to harm, whereas restorative practice is far more proactive in its approach, because you're not waiting for harm to occur. So the theory behind restorative practice is that we build relationships. We try and prevent harm happening. But when harm happens, we can do the things that restorative justice does in terms of repairing that harm, and looking at solutions and moving people forward.
Thank you. And what I will say is that I'll have put the titles of the books and the websites above our heads so people can follow that through. So the last thing I'd like to ask everybody is if they have any kind of interesting stories, anything that's happened during their practice that they'd like to share with students, because again, I think one of the things I'm finding on my journey as somebody that's worked professionally and then gone into studying is that, you know, you get to, I really like the idea of learning from other people, and, you know, sometimes what you find in your practice is different to what you find in your books, and sometimes you get a mixture of the both. So is there any stories that you would like to share?
Yeah, and something that happened a few years ago, actually. Social work is about relationships. If social work isn't about relationships, then I don't know what social work is about. And, you know, within social work, nothing happens without relationships. It's fundamental to what we do. But I don't think we always give credit or thought to actually how powerful they are. And a few years ago, I happened to meet somebody who I used to be their social worker when they were a child. This person was an adult. And we were talking. And partway through the conversation, this person kind of got the bag and started rooting around in the bag and pulled out like a little book, but they got a photograph in there, which I thought was quite unusual because people don't carry photographs around with them anymore. They have a phone with photographs, but pulled out this photograph and showed me and said, I just want to show you this. And the photograph was me, a much younger me, and them, a much younger them, sat on a settee in their foster carer's home, and it was this person's birthday. I remember saying to her, what's that about? Why have you got that photo? That seems a random thing to be doing. And what she actually said was, I've carried it around with me because it's reminded me actually how important relationships are. And the relationship that I had with you as a social worker, I've held on to that relationship because the relationship I had with you as my social worker meant so much to me. Which kind of, stumped me really. I didn't know what to say. I just thought I was doing my job and, that's what you did. But actually that relationship had meant something to that person. It made a difference. And, she said through the difficult times and things, I've often looked at that photograph and thought, well, actually, people are out there to help, and it is about relationships. So, I talk a lot about relationships and the power of relationships, and that's a story for me that really just kind of highlights how powerful it is. And we're not talking about just the relationships that last a few months. That investment in relationships, that investment in people, it lasts a long time. So, thinking about being a social worker, training as a social worker, being a student, I just urge people to think about the power of relationships, because it's not just about what you do now, it's about what you leave people with. We enter people's lives, and we need to think when we exit, what do we leave them with? And a Maya Angelou quote that I'll leave you with, which was that people won't always remember what you said or what you did, but they'll remember how you left them feeling. And I think that really sums up our work really succinctly, because in years to come, people will remember how they felt about that relationship that I had with you as a social worker.
Powerful, and a powerful quote to end it on. And I think what I like through this conversation today is kind of how the threading theme through it all is relationships. And I always remember in previous roles when I had to go to maybe an initial conference or a review conference with a family, and I'd see that you would be the person that'd be the chair for that, and I used to get excited because I'd be like, this is going to be a really positive experience, even if we have to have these difficult conversations, and even if maybe the outcome might not be what the family wants, or even professionally what I'm thinking as well. But we know that it's going to be, you know, done in the right way, and the relationship is going to be a key flow through those types of practices. So, you know, I really love how I've met you through different stages of my career, and even through this conversation, and even when you're talking about your history as well, how relationships play such a key part, and probably how restorative practice actually must have been just a natural fit for you.
It was, and you know, it's something that when I think I probably practiced restoratively to a certain degree before, you know, through the course of my career, but never knew what it was called, and then all of a sudden it had this name. And you know, relationships, healthy relationships, are built on high challenge and high support, a balance between the two. And sometimes, yeah, it might be necessary for us to do things to people or for people, but actually we can do that in a with way, because it's not about what you do, it's about how you do it, because that's what makes a difference to people. You know, there's times when you know, we have to offer more challenge than support, but it's about how you do that, and being really, really mindful about, you know, about your behaviour, but your thought processes, your with, what I call your with mentality. So, you know, even if you're having really difficult conversations with people, you can do that in a with way.
Yeah, 100%. So you mentioned earlier about that, that you're on Twitter, and there's a lot of other people on Twitter as well that are always talking about social work. If the viewers wanted to get in touch with you or find out more about what you're doing, what would be the best way to get in touch with you?
Probably through Twitter. So Mike Hayward WS1. And if you have a look on there, you'll just see that there's some really inspirational people out there. I'd never thought that really a social media site would be so beneficial, but it is. You know, I've learned lots off there, and there's often kind of, you know, research documents, articles that get tweeted as well. So it's something well worth looking at.
Definitely. And if you wanted to get in touch with me, I'm also on Twitter, and it's Duane_Phillips_. And I'm also part of the Student Social Work Hub, and our Twitter handle is @SWBohemians. And you can also get in touch with us via email, which is studentsocialworkers@outlook.com. So finally, again, I'd just like to say thank you for giving us your time, Mike, and I hope to see you guys in the future. Thank you very much. Take care. Goodbye.
Pleasure. Bye-bye.